The desert was quiet, cold, and full of dust. Jake, a human mechanic, walked alone near the old spaceport ruins. He liked silence, and the desert gave him plenty. But today, something felt different. He noticed smoke rising in the distance, thin and gray. Smoke meant fire, and fire meant someone or something was there. Jake grabbed his tools, slung his old rifle over his back, and started walking toward it. His boots crunched over dry ground as the wind blew across the rocks. When he reached the place, he stopped and stared. A strange ship had crashed. Not human, not any model he had seen before. The metal was smooth like glass, and it shimmered slightly in the sun. But what made him freeze were the footprints. They were small, too small for an adult human, and they just stopped. No body, no blood, no drag marks. Just clean footprints that vanished like someone had taken off in the air. Jake kneeled down and touched the last print. It was fresh, still warm from heat. That meant whoever made it was close, very close. Jake slowly stood and looked around. Nothing, no wind, no animals, no sound. Still, he felt something, like eyes watching him. He spoke softly. "I know you're there." A sudden movement, barely a flicker, passed by his left side. He turned his head and saw something. It looked like the air had bent for a second, like a ripple in water. Then, it stopped, and the silence returned. "I can see you," Jake said calmly, looking right at the ripple. The air shimmered again, and this time, it didn't stop. A shape began to appear, slowly, carefully, like someone stepping out of a dream. She was tall but thin, wearing a suit that reflected light like a mirror. Her face was covered with a smooth helmet. No eyes, no mouth, no voice. But she froze in place. She hadn't expected to be seen. No one ever did. Jake didn't raise his weapon. He simply stepped back and sat down on a rock. "You're not here to fight, are you?" he asked. No answer. She tilted her head slightly, unsure what to do. Jake smiled a little. "Suit's breaking, huh? You blinked when I looked at you." Still no reply, but her hands clenched. Then, a voice came, soft, mechanical, translated. "Humans cannot see me," she said. Jake chuckled. "I guess I'm not a regular human then." The girl tilted her head again, surprised. "Your implants?" she asked. Jake tapped the side of his neck. "War gift," he said. "They let me see lies and half-truths." There was silence again, long and heavy. The girl didn't move, but Jake could feel her thinking. Then slowly she touched her helmet and made it vanish. What he saw made him go still. Her skin was silver blue, glowing faintly. Her eyes were large, deep, and full of fear. She didn't look dangerous. She looked lost, alone. Jake softened his voice. "You hurt?" She shook her head. He opened his bag and pulled out a small water bottle, held it toward her. She didn't take it, but she didn't run either. Jake placed it on the ground and backed away. "I'm Jake," he said. "Mechanic, ex-soldier. Not your enemy." She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed at the crashed ship. "It's broken," she said. "No way to fly." Jake nodded. "I can help if you want." More silence. Then she asked, "Why?" Jake looked at the red sky, then back at her glowing face. "Because I know what it's like to crash," he said, "and to hope someone finds you." The wind picked up again, and dust blew around them. She didn't smile, but something in her shoulders relaxed. "Lissa," she finally said. "My name is Lissa." Jake stood up and nodded. "All right, Lissa," he said. "Let's get out of the open." As they walked toward his small desert shelter, Lissa kept turning her head. Still unsure, she had been invisible all her life. But now, someone saw her, and that changed everything. Lissa didn't sleep that night. She sat in the corner of Jake's bunker, her knees pulled to her chest. The room was warm and quiet, lit by a single yellow lamp. Jake had given her a blanket and space, then went to his workbench like nothing was strange. He didn't stare at her, didn't ask 1,000 questions. He just worked on a broken power cell, humming softly to himself. It was the calm that made her nervous. She had spent years hiding from scanners, hunters, and cold eyes. Now a human saw her, spoke kindly, and acted like she was just Normal, but she was not. Her body was marked by soft glows under her skin. Her bones were lighter than any human's, her voice encoded through tech. She was not made for kindness, not anymore. Jake looked over his shoulder and smiled. "You hungry?" he asked, holding up a can. Lissa shook her head, but her stomach betrayed her with a soft growl. He laughed, opened the can, and placed it near her without a word. She sniffed it like a wild creature, then picked it up. It was simple human food. Salty and warm. She ate slowly, one bite at a time, never looking up. Jake didn't stare either, just kept working. Then something strange happened. Jake spoke again, but not in English. His voice lowered, almost like a whisper, and what he kwangla. Saad made Lissa drop her spoon. It was her language, old lost, spoken only by elders before her world burned. No one on earth should know it. Yet Jake had just said a greeting her mother used every morning. She stood up fast, knocking the can over. "Where did you learn that?" she asked, voice shaking. Jake looked surprised, but not scared. He shrugged. "I just remembered it." "Impossible," she said. "Your kind never knew our words." Jake leaned back and sighed. "Maybe not," he said. "But I fought in a place long ago where screams weren't human." Lissa froze. "Did you see them?" she whispered. Jake nodded slowly. "Yeah," he said. "I saw what they did to your kind." He stood and walked over to a shelf, pulling out a small dusty box. From inside, he took out a crystal shard, cracked, glowing faintly blue. Lissa stepped back, recognizing it instantly. That was a memory core, something only her people carried. Jake held it out to her. "She gave me this," he said. "A child, just before she died." Lissa's fingers shook as she took it. The core blinked once, then played a short image in the air. A younger girl, silver blue like her, smiled in the projection. Lissa covered her mouth, tears building in her eyes. "She was my cousin," she whispered. "We thought she vanished." Jake sat down again, eyes full of regret. "I couldn't save her," he said, "but I buried her far from the fire." Lissa stood in silence, heart pounding. The human she thought might be a spy had saved her family. Jake watched her carefully. "I'm not your enemy," he said again. "I never was." Still, Lissa couldn't trust fully. She had trusted once before, and it nearly killed her. But this man had her cousin's core, spoke her language, and never once tried to hurt her. That mattered. She walked over slowly and sat across from him. Jake reached for the broken power cell again, as if the moment hadn't just happened. "You gonna help me fix this thing or not?" he joked. Lissa blinked, then gave a tiny smile. She picked up a tool and said, "That wire's in the wrong slot." Jake grinned. "You sure?" Lissa leaned over, adjusted it, and the cell lit up bright green. Jake whistled. "Well, guess you're useful after all." For the first time in years, Lissa laughed, just a little. It sounded strange in the quiet bunker, but warm. Jake looked at her and smiled wider. "You're not invisible to me," he said. "Not now, not ever." And for the first time, Lissa wanted to be seen. The bunker felt smaller now, not because of the walls, but because of the silence between them. Jake still worked during the day, fixing broken radios, scanning distant signals, keeping watch. Lissa watched him, studying every move, every word, every breath. She had seen enough lies in her life to know when someone was hiding something. Jake had been kind, too kind. He gave her warmth, food, and safety without asking for anything back. No human did that. Not since her people were hunted like animals. He claimed to be different, but Lissa couldn't forget the photo she had found it the night before, when Jake went outside to fix the satellite dish. It was inside a drawer, dusty and old. The photo showed Jake, younger, standing with a group of humans and 2 alien soldiers. Not just any aliens, they were marked with the black crest of the burned eye. The burned eye was the group that wiped out her colony. They set cities on fire, captured her brothers, and erased her people's names from history. And Jake had stood beside them, smiling, Her blood had gone cold just looking at it. Now she sat quietly at the edge of the room, arms wrapped around herself. Jake acted normal, laughing softly while working on some old device. He looked peaceful, like he had nothing to hide. But she saw the photo, and it burned in her mind like fire. She finally spoke. "You fought beside them." Jake looked up, confused. "Beside who?" She reached into her jacket and threw the photo onto the table. His face changed fast, from calm to cold to something else, something older. Jake picked up the photo, held it for a moment, then set it down slowly. "I did," he said. Voice flat. For a short time, Lissa stood up, glowing slightly with anger. "You lied." Jake didn't argue, he just nodded. "I was young, angry, and full of orders," he said. "They told me your people were dangerous. They said you killed children," he added. "They lied, and I believed them." Lissa's voice shook. "You burned our homes." Jake stared at the floor. "I did worse." The room fell into heavy silence. For a moment, Lissa wanted to leave, to vanish, to never speak to him again. But something in Jake's voice held her still. He looked up, and his eyes were full of pain, not excuses. "I left when I found the truth," he said. "The mission was fake. We were wiping out history." He pointed to the memory shard she now wore around her neck. "She was the one who told me your cousin. She saved me more than I saved her." Lissa looked down at the shard, glowing faintly, warm against her chest. Jake spoke again, softer this time. "I ran after that, disappeared. Tried to fix machines instead of people. But no matter what I fix, nothing erases what I did." He added. Lissa sat back down, still angry, but something in her heart cracked open. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. "You should have told me," she whispered. "I know," Jake replied. "I was afraid you'd leave." Lissa looked at him. This strange human who once helped her enemy, but now helped her. "You still have a chance to do something right," she said. Jake nodded slowly. "Tell me what you need." "I need to disappear again," she said. "But not alone." He raised an eyebrow, confused. Lissa looked at the old cum device he'd repaired earlier. "That signal you caught last night," she said. "It was a tracker." Jake sat up straighter. "For you?" She nodded. "They know I'm alive, and now they know where I am." Jake moved fast, powering down lights, locking doors, checking weapons. "Then we need to move," he said. Lissa shook her head. "Not run, prepare." Jake looked at her and saw it for the first time. Not fear, but fire. She wasn't a scared girl anymore. She was someone ready to fight. He walked over and held out his hand. She hesitated, then took it. Jake smiled. "Guess we're a team now," Lissa replied. Until the end. The storm was coming, and both of them could feel it in their bones. But for the first time, they would face it together. Asterisk. The sky outside turned red as evening came. Dust moved like smoke in the wind, circling the bunker in slow waves. Jake checked the scanners again. But they showed nothing. Still, the air felt heavy, like something invisible was pressing down on them. Inside, Lissa sat near the wall, her eyes glowing faintly. She wasn't scared, not anymore. She had spent too many years hiding, running, surviving, but this time she wanted to stand. Jake brought out an old storage box and opened it. Inside were parts of old weapons, scrap armor, and some dusty manuals. "I didn't think I'd ever use these again," he said. Lissa looked through the pieces, pulling out a broken drone core. "We need to mix what you know and what I know," she said. Jake nodded. "Human tricks with alien tech." They worked through the night, building, shaping, planning. They set traps using old motion sensors and pieces of her suit. Lissa showed him how to use her species' shield coils. They weren't made to stop bullets, but they could twist light and sound. Together they made small devices that could confuse scanners. Jake added them to the corners of the bunker, grinning like a soldier again. "You're not bad at this," he told her. Lissa didn't smile, but her eyes softened. "I was trained to hide, not fight," she said. "But I learned quickly." Jake paused, then asked, "Who trained you?" She didn't answer at first, just stared at her hands. "My father," she said finally. "He was a general, proud and cold. He taught me to disappear, because our people were losing." Jake sat beside her, silent. Lissa continued. "He said if one of us survives, our history survives. I hated him for sending me away." She added, "But now I understand." Jake looked at her gently. "You're more than history. You're alive and you still have a choice." There was a strange quiet between them, not heavy, not sad, just full of things neither of them said out loud. Then Lissa stood up, holding a device they'd just built. It shimmered faintly like her old invisibility cloak. Jake watched her activate it, her body blurred, then vanished completely, but only for a second. When she reappeared, her face looked different. "It doesn't feel right anymore," she whispered. Jake tilted his head. "What do you mean?" "I thought invisibility made me safe," she said, "but now it feels like a cage." Jake understood that better than most. He walked over to the table and placed a mirror there. Lissa looked at her reflection, her silver blue skin, her strange, bright eyes. "I used to believe no one would ever see me," she said. "Not really. But when you looked at me that first day—" "You didn't flinch," Jake replied. "You weren't hiding." Lissa looked at him sharply. "Yes, I was." Jake shook his head. "Your suit was bending light, but your fear, that was loud." "I didn't see your body," he said. "I saw your fear." Lissa didn't know what to say to that. No one had ever spoken like that to her. Like she was a person, not just a survivor. Jake turned back to the table, adjusting one of the signal scramblers. Suddenly, the scanner beeped. One soft pulse. Jake moved fast, checking the screen. Lissa stepped beside him, eyes glowing brighter. "What is it?" she asked. Jake stared at the blinking light on the monitor. "A probe," he said. "Just one. Small, silent, and close." "They're scouting," Lissa said, voice tight. Jake grabbed his old rifle. "That means more will come." Lissa activated one of their traps, the one hidden under the sand near the ridge. A low hum buzzed in the air, and then it faded. "I caught its signal," she said. "It sent a pulse before we jammed it." Jake looked at her. "Then we don't have much time." They both moved quickly, setting up barriers, sealing entrances, powering shields. Jake handed her a weapon, small, smooth, and old. "Do you know how to use it?" he asked. Lissa looked down at it, held it like a memory. "My father gave me one like this," she said, "but I never fired it." Jake placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then you shoot only if you have to," he said. "We don't win by killing, we win by surviving." The sun vanished behind the horizon, and the wind howled louder. They stood at the entrance of the bunker, waiting, side by side. Lissa no longer wore the cloak, no longer bent the light around her body. She stood in the open, glowing, seen real. Jake glanced at her and smiled. "You're not invisible anymore," he said. She didn't smile back, but she nodded, and for the first time, she didn't want to be invisible again. The night fell like a curtain, heavy and black. Wind slammed against the walls of the bunker, carrying dust and static through the air. The stars above were hidden behind thick clouds, but both Jake and Lissa felt it. Something was moving toward them, something that knew she was alive inside the bunker. The machines buzzed quietly. Jake checked the traps again, his fingers moving fast over old wires and new alien parts. Lissa stood still in the center of the room, her arms folded tightly across her chest. She had removed every piece of her cloaking tech, every fragment of her old disguise. For the first time in her life, she wasn't hiding, and it terrified her more than any hunter ever had. Jake looked at her from the corner of his eye. "You okay?" he asked, not pretending to be calm anymore. Lissa nodded once, but her voice was low. "They will come in waves," she said. "1 to find, 2 to test, 5 to kill." Jake muttered under his breath. "Guess we'll skip the welcome mat." He loaded a charge into the shield battery, sparks jumping across the surface. "We have power for 1 hard burst," he said. "After that, It's just guts and wires. Lissa didn't answer, her eyes glowing brighter now, more gold than blue. She was remembering. Not just her father, not just her cousin, but the lessons carved into her mind since she was young. How to vanish, how to escape, how to survive by not being seen. But now, she wanted to be seen, and that changed everything. The first warning came like a whisper. The outer sensors blinked once, then died. Jake looked up, alarmed. "They're here," Lissa said, already stepping toward the door. Jake blocked her with one hand. "No way, you stay back." Lissa looked at him, her voice firm. "If they see only you, they'll burn this place down. But if they see me," she said. "If they recognize me," Jake stared, confused. "Recognize you?" Lissa didn't explain, not fully. Instead, she walked outside, her boots sinking slightly into the sand. The wind caught her hair and pulled it like threads of fire. High above, a drone hovered silently, scanning her body. Lissa raised her hand. And the drone paused. Its scanner shifted, reading her deeper. Her blood, her code. Then a light turned red, and the drone flew upward fast, disappearing into the night. Jake ran out after her, gripping his rifle. "Did you just let it go?" he asked, shocked. Lissa's voice was calm. It saw what it needed to see. Jake stepped closer, lowering his voice. "What are you not telling me?" Lissa turned to him slowly. "I wasn't just anyone," she said. "I was meant to lead, not hide." Jake blinked. "You're royal?" She shook her head. "No," she said. "Something older, something forgotten." "The old blood," she whispered. "My line holds the spark of the voice." Jake didn't understand, not fully, but he remembered stories from the war. Of speakers who could shake stone, of voices that made machines bow and armies freeze. Lissa continued. "The voice was lost when our world burned. But I carry a piece of it," she said. "That's why they hunted my family first." Jake stared at her, the wind whistling around them. "You can command them?" he asked, voice full of disbelief. "No," she said softly. "Not yet. But they fear that I might." A loud thump echoed in the distance, then another. Shadows moved along the edge of the cliffs, big and armored. Bounty hunters, 5 of them, walking in formation like wolves around prey. Jake raised his rifle, but Lissa didn't move. Instead, she closed her eyes, and the glow around her brightened, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. She took a deep breath, then whispered. Word in her old language. The sand shifted, the air thickened. And even Jake felt it in his chest. The lead hunter stopped walking. He stared at her, not with hate, but with surprise. He lowered his weapon slightly. "You speak the old tongue," he said. Lissa opened her eyes, glowing like stars. "Yes," she said, "and I am not afraid." The hunters didn't shoot. They waited, unsure. One stepped forward, taller than the rest, with scars across his metal chest. He bowed, just a little, but enough. Then he turned and walked away. The others followed, silent, disappearing into the dark. Jake exhaled slowly, stunned. "What just happened?" he whispered. Lissa didn't look at him. "They came to kill a shadow," she said. "But I showed them a flame." Asterisk. The dawn was pale and cold. The desert stretched silent and empty around the bunker. Jake sat by the flickering terminal, his fingers resting lightly on the keys. Lissa stood near the entrance, watching the horizon, her eyes sharp, glowing faintly with the memory of last night's strange mercy. The hunters had left without a fight, but the silence that followed was heavier than any battle. Jake broke it. First, his voice low. "They respected you," he said. "But that means they'll be back." Lissa nodded slowly. "They feared the voice," she said. "And the voice is still waking." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device, a crystal shard, humming softly with ancient power. "This is the last of my people's legacy," she said. "If I fail, it dies here." Jake looked at her, understanding the weight she carried. "We won't let that happen," he promised. "Not while I'm alive." Together, they prepared for the storm. Jake loaded his weapons, checked his armor, and set traps around the bunker. Lissa focused on the shard. Her hands steady, but her breath quickening. She whispered words older than the stars, calling forth the voice that slept within her blood. Suddenly, the air shifted. A low hum filled the room, vibrating through the walls. Lissa's glow brightened until the bunker was filled with soft light. Jake shielded his eyes but felt no fear, only hope. Outside, the ground trembled. Shadows moved like smoke across the dunes. The hunters had returned, more than before. Their machines roared to life, scanning, searching. Closing in, Lissa stepped forward, her voice rising in the old tongue, words that twisted the air and bent the light. The hunters faltered, their weapons stilled. Some dropped to their knees, caught in the power of the voice. Jake took his chance, firing at the exposed enemies. His shots precise, his courage steady. Lissa moved like a ghost between them, her presence stronger than any invisibility cloak. But the leader of the hunters was not broken. He stood tall, metal arm raised, signaling his team. A pulse of dark energy shot toward Lissa. She barely dodged, the blast scorching the sand where she had stood. Jake rushed to her side, shielding her with his body. "Stay down!" he shouted. Lissa shook her head, glowing fiercely now. "This ends now," she said. Voice like thunder, she raised the shard high. It exploded in light, a wave that swept over the desert. The hunters screamed, their machines sparking and dying. One by one, they fell to the ground, powerless, defeated. When the light faded, only Jake and Lissa remained standing. The desert was still again. Lissa dropped the shard. Breathing hard, Jake helped her up, eyes shining with pride. "You were the voice all along," he said, smiling. Lissa smiled back, a real smile, free and bright. "For the first time," she whispered, "I am not invisible." Asterisk. The sun rose slowly over the broken dunes. The sand carried the scent of burnt metal and silence. The battlefield had vanished, leaving behind only scorched ground and faint footprints. Jake stood quietly, watching Lissa as she stared at the horizon. Neither of them spoke for a long time. They didn't need to. What had happened couldn't be erased. Not by time, not by memory, but it could be used, built upon, reshaped into something new. Jake walked toward the fallen machines. He salvaged what he could. Wires, power cells, shattered scanners. Lissa followed, gathering what was left of the shard. It was cracked and dark now, but not empty. "There's still power inside," she said softly. Jake looked at her. "Enough to call someone?" Lissa nodded slowly. "Enough to send a message." "Then let's send the right one," Jake said. Back in the bunker, they rebuilt the signal tower. It wasn't strong, but it would reach the stars. Lissa sat in front of the console, her fingers shaking only once. Jake stood behind her, silent, steady. She spoke in the old tongue, her voice no longer a whisper. "This is Lissa, daughter of the hidden line. The voice has returned, and we are not gone. There is light here," she said. "There is a place where we are seen." The message ended, and the tower hummed as it sent her words across the void. Then came silence, long, quiet, deep silence. Jake didn't speak, he waited. Lissa didn't move, she hoped. And then, a sound, a pulse, soft and distant. Jake leaned closer to the receiver. Lissa's eyes widened. Another voice came through, faint but clear. "I hear you," it said. "I am not alone anymore." Lissa covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. Others were still out there, survivors, like her. She turned to Jake, smiling through her tears. "We did it," she whispered. Jake grinned. "Told you we would." He reached out and held her hand gently. In the weeks that followed, others arrived. Not many, but enough. They were broken, tired, quiet, just like Lissa had been. But she welcomed them, one by one, with warmth in her voice. Jake fixed their ships, their armor, their hearts. He became a builder again, not a fighter. Lissa became more than a memory. She became a leader, a voice that others followed. She no longer needed a cloak, no longer feared the mirror. The invisible girl was gone, and in her place stood someone powerful, someone real. Jake once told her, "I saw you from the start," but now the whole world did, and she never wanted to hide. Again,